Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with keywords that made headlines this week. Presidents of the United States and China, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, are both likely to visit South Korea for the APEC leaders meeting next month. Seoul's foreign minister this week met with his Chinese counterpart to discuss this issue, and acting U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Joseph Yoon, has said Presidents Yi and Trump will meet in Gyeongju. The National Assembly's questioning of the government got underway this week. 4 days of questioning ended with rival parties pressing on a wide range of issues, including judicial reforms and visa issues following the immigration raid on a Hyundai plant in the U.S. state of Georgia. The U.S. Federal Reserve made its first rate cut this year, lowering its key interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point, and signaled more rate cuts to come. Fed Chair Jerome Powell pointed to growing signs of weakness in the labor market, amid concerns over inflation driven by tariffs. The U.S. Central Bank this week decided to cut its key interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point, the first cut of President Donald Trump's second administration. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
U.S. Federal Reserve has cut its benchmark rate by 0.25 percentage points. With the cut, the rate now stands between 4% and 4.25%. The decision on Wednesday local time marks the first rate cut for this year and the first since the Trump administration took office in January, as the Fed had held the rate steady since last December's cut. Speaking to journalists, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the balance of risks has shifted as the downside risk of unemployment has increased.
While the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed, and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated.
In a press release, the central bank also mentioned a somewhat elevated inflation risk due to tariffs, though Powell said the effects of the tariffs on economic activity and inflation are yet to be seen.
Higher tariffs have begun to push up prices in some categories of goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen. A reasonable base case is that the effects on inflation will be relatively short-lived.
One of the Fed governors, Stephen Miron, who was appointed by President Trump and only took office the day before the decision, actually voted for a bigger interest rate cut of 0.5 percentage points. According to the Fed's latest dot plot, which shows policymakers' interest rate projections, there could be 2 additional rate cuts this year in upcoming FOMC meetings in October and December. As a result of this September rate cut, the interest rate differential between Seoul and Washington has narrowed to 1.75 percentage points, with South Korea's rate being at 2.5%. Kim Bo-kyung, 아리랑뉴스.
And after the U.S. Fed announced its first rate cut of the year, investors were the first to respond to the Fed chair's remarks as the agency implied further rate cuts. Our economic correspondent Park Junan has the details.
Following the U.S. Federal Reserve's first rate cut of the year on Wednesday, global stock markets, especially in Asia, including South Korea, continued to rise. The Fed indicated a median federal funds rate of 3.6% for the end of this year, suggesting 2 additional rate cuts are likely at the October and December Federal Open Market Committee meetings. Policymakers then projected a median interest rate of 3.4% at the end of 2026 and a long-term target rate to stay at around 3%. Global stocks either rebounded or set new record highs following the Fed's plans for long-term interest rate cuts. U.S. stock indexes such as the S&P 500 and Nasdaq dipped slightly on Wednesday ahead of the interest rate decision, but recovered most of their losses after the announcement. Asian stocks rose to previous all-time highs the following day as investors viewed the Fed's stance positively, with expectations outweighing concerns over an economic slowdown. South Korea's Kospi gained 1.4% to break another high at over 3,460 points, led by semiconductor stocks. Japan's Nikkei 225 also claimed another record as it climbed to over 45,300 at the market's close, boosted by export-related shares' strong performances. Following the interest rate decision, South Korean government agencies said that they would plan appropriate fiscal responses. An official from the Bank of Korea stated that due to the Fed's first rate cut in 9 months, it has become easier for it to operate monetary policy with a focus on domestic economic conditions, inflation, and financial stability. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance Koo Yoon-chul noted at a macro-financial meeting that global markets reacted largely in line with expectations to the Fed's rate cut, though sentiment was mixed as investors weighed the U.S. Fed chairman's remarks on lingering uncertainties. Koo also stressed that the ministry will closely monitor risks, respond swiftly if needed, and maintain constant communication with relevant agencies to ensure stability in the economy and financial markets. 박준환, 아리랑뉴스.
After hundreds of South Korean workers were detained in a U.S. immigration raid in Georgia, an official at an economic development organization in the state says discussions are currently underway to bring back those workers. A new report from the Congressional Research Service also warns that the incident could strain Seoul-Washington ties. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
An official from a public economic development organization in the U.S. state of Georgia says discussions are underway to bring back South Korean workers who were detained in a U.S. immigration raid earlier this month. Hugh Tollison, president of the Savannah Economic Development Authority, told the Savannah Morning News on Wednesday that it's very important for the workers to return. He explained that they are the only people with the technical skills to install equipment and train employees in battery cell technology at Hyundai Motor Group's joint battery plant with LG Energy Solution. Tollison did not provide details on how the workers' return might be secured. Meanwhile, a new report from the Congressional Research Service warned that the incident could strain U.S.-South Korea relations. The report noted concerns that immigration enforcement could conflict with U.S. efforts to expand domestic manufacturing through foreign investment. It also referenced the pending legislation known as the Partner with Korea Act. The bipartisan bill would provide 15,000 high-skilled visas for Korean nationals, helping to fill gaps in advanced industries like electric vehicles and batteries. Meanwhile, LG Energy Solution says its U.S. battery projects remain on track despite the recent incident. According to the Wall Street Journal, Lee Hyuk-jae, the head of the company's North America division, told reporters at an auto industry event in Detroit that LG is working very hard at all sites to ensure customers are not affected. LG Energy Solution is currently building 4 battery plants in the U.S., including the joint venture with Hyundai in Georgia. More than 310 South Koreans were arrested on September 4th at the Hyundai LG plant construction site in Georgia. U.S. immigration officials say they were working illegally, some on short-term or recreational visas that do not allow employment. They were detained for about a week before being released and returned to South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, 아리랑뉴스.
Seoul and Beijing's top diplomats met for their first in-person talk since the start of the Lee Jae-myung administration, discussing North Korea issues and a potential visit to South Korea by Chinese President Xi Jinping next month. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea and China reaffirmed their strategic cooperative partnership as Foreign Minister Cho Hyun met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing in their first face-to-face talks of the Lee Jae-myung administration. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, Cho and Wang met for 3 hours on Wednesday evening local time for talks and dinner at the Diaoitai State Guesthouse. North Korea dominated the discussion. Cho emphasized the need for denuclearization and peace through dialogue and cooperation and urged Beijing to help bring Pyongyang back to dialogue. Wang replied that China would continue to play a constructive role for peace and stability on the peninsula and continue communicating with Seoul. Speaking to the media afterwards, Cho said Wang had provided an explanation regarding North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's visit to China earlier this month. While Beijing made no explicit mention of denuclearization, Cho noted China's policy on the peninsula appears unchanged. This would be reassuring for Seoul, as the North Korea-China summit raised concerns as statements from both sides did not address denuclearization, unlike in their previous 4 summits. Another focus was Chinese President Xi Jinping's possible visit to South Korea for the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju next month.
APEC being held this year in Korea and next year in China carries great significance. We hope President Xi will attend the Gyeongju leaders' meeting.
Cho later told reporters he felt it was clear that President Xi intends to visit Korea at the end of October. Upon Cho's invitation, Wang replied that he looked forward to meeting again in Seoul, with October viewed as the likely timeframe. The Korean diplomat's visit to Beijing preceded protocol, as it was actually Wang's turn to visit Seoul first. This appears to signal South Korea's pragmatic diplomacy amid the heightened rivalry between the United States and China. Wang in fact highlighted China's version of multilateralism, signaling Beijing's efforts to offset US leadership.
We hope, together with Korea and the wider international community, to uphold a uncensored international system and to develop the global order in a fairer and more reasonable direction.
Cho explained that while South Korea will continue to strengthen its alliance with Washington, it will also pursue the mature development of Seoul-Beijing relations based on national interest and pragmatism. He also stressed the need to respect mutual concerns, objecting to China's unauthorized structures in the Yellow Sea. Wang replied that consultations are already underway and that the issue will be properly managed. The two ministers also discussed shifting economic cooperation from a vertical division of labour to a more horizontal partnership, with the aim of directly benefiting their citizens. Oh Soo-young, 아리랑뉴스.
Acting U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Joseph Yoon says U.S. President Donald Trump will attend the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju next month and hold talks with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. Now, although the White House has yet to officially confirm Trump's visit, speaking at the Korea-U.S. Alliance Conference in Seoul on Wednesday, Yoon said last month's summit between the two leaders was a success and confirmed they will meet again at APEC. He emphasized that the alliance remains strong and is growing stronger. He also said that the partnership is focused not only on the Korean Peninsula, but also on global peace, prosperity, and security, stressing ongoing efforts to modernize the alliance. President Lee Jae-myung called balanced regional growth inevitable for sustainable development in a cabinet meeting held outside of Seoul for the first time under his administration. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Achieving sustainable growth is a key task for the nation, and it is possible through balanced growth. This is according to President Lee Jae-myung as he presided over the weekly cabinet meeting on Tuesday at the Sejong Government Complex in the administrative city of Sejong for the first time since taking office.
대한민국의 지속적인 성장 발전을 위해서 이제는 국가 균형 발전이 선택이 아니라 이제 운명이 됐다 이렇게 생각이 듭니다.
To shift away from a system heavily concentrated in the capital, the new government is pushing a key national agenda to balance development across other regions, divided into 5 key hubs, including the Seoul metropolitan area, and 3 special governing areas, Gangwon, Jeonbuk, and Jeju.
Currently, we have a balanced growth system that treats regions equally, but it will be converted into concentration and connection, focusing on intensive regional units.
In line with that, the president renewed his pledge to build another presidential office in Sejong, as well as a National Assembly building. And noting Youth Week, President Lee stated the need to boost employment among young people, pointing to the August job report that showed the employment rate of people aged 15 to 29 declining for the 16th straight months.
청년 고용 문제 해결을 위해서는 정부뿐 아니라 기업의 노력도 필요합니다. 청년도 기업도 국가도 모두가 윈윈하는.
During Tuesday's meeting, the Lee administration's 123 policy tasks unveiled last month were confirmed by the cabinet, which will serve as a roadmap for the next 5 years. Among a wide range of areas, key agenda items include introducing 2 4-year presidential terms instead of the current single 5-year term. South Korea also aims to bolster its 3-axis defense system, as well as take back wartime operational control from Washington. On the economy, the authorities will focus on fostering new growth engines involving AI and biotechnology. The government made sure these are carried out in the right direction through a monitoring system, while creating an online platform where ordinary people can pitch their ideas. Yoon Jung-min, 아리랑뉴스.
The National Assembly this week wrapped up its first interpellation session under the Lee Jae-myung administration. The 4 days of questions sparked heated exchanges between the rival parties over a wide range of state affairs. For more on this, we have our political correspondent Shin Ha-young in the studio with us. Welcome, Ha-young.
Thanks for having me, Eunji.
So, Ha-young, this week a lot of attention was on the questions and answer session since it was the first since President Lee took office, right?
You're right, Eunji. But first, for those unfamiliar, an interpellation session is a formal process in which members of the National Assembly question top government officials, from the Prime Minister to cabinet ministers, about their policies and performance. And this 4-day session began on Monday and ran through Thursday, covering a wide range of issues, including diplomacy, security, the economy, education, and society. And the questions came amid heightened tensions between the rival parties after a bipartisan agreement on bills for the 3 special counsel investigations into the Yoon Suk-yeol government fell apart.
I see. And Ha-young, what were some of the key issues that were addressed during the session?
Well, the issue of South Korean workers detained in Georgia came under fire, with the main opposition People Power Party arguing that the large-scale arrests targeting only Korean factories by U.S. immigration authorities at a time when tariff negotiations between Seoul and Washington are underway reflect the Lee Jae-myung administration's lack of competence. The ruling Democratic Party, on the other hand, countered that the incident stemmed from excessive crackdowns by the U.S. authorities. Take a listen.
The use of chains and ankle shackles during the arrests. This is being condemned as clear mistreatment and an inhumane practice. The U.S., too, must change what needs to be changed and improve what needs to be improved.
In response to these concerns, the foreign minister said that the events could serve as a blessing in disguise.
The U.S. has now taken the initiative to actively address long-standing visa issues. And since we have also been pressing strongly on this matter, I think it will serve as an opportunity to resolve visa problems more effectively going forward.
A heated debate ensued as lawmakers continued to clash over judicial and prosecutorial reforms, which clouded the interpellation from the outset. On the last day of the session, the PPP criticized the DP for calling on Chief Justice Cho Lee-dae to step down over alleged political bias and for proposing to increase the number of Supreme Court justices, calling it an attempt by the administration to control the judiciary.
All of these actions that undermine the fairness of trials and encroach on judicial authority are unconstitutional measures that shake the very foundation of the liberal democratic order.
And Prime Minister Kim Min-seok dismissed the claims, stressing that the debate should not be reduced to political timing or appointments.
And how were economic issues addressed during the session?
Well, economic issues took center stage on the 3rd day of the 4-day Q&A with government officials. And the PPP targeted the ruling party's unilateral passage of contentious bills, such as the pro-labor Yellow Envelope Act, arguing that they hinder business activity.
The Yellow Envelope Act reflects the views of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, and I believe it restricts businesses and could drive them out of the country. That's why I think the ruling DP, which holds a National Assembly majority, needs to introduce follow-up legislation.
The government understands that issues can arise from misunderstandings, exaggerations, or uncertainty. That's why it will set up a task force and create manuals to address them.
Amid ongoing trade negotiations with Washington, the ruling DP rebutted the opposition's concerns over the scale of South Korea's pledged investment in the U.S., saying it was not unrealistic, with the Prime Minister adding that it will benefit Korea's economy in the long run.
The pledge $350 billion is large, but given that South Korea's financial assets in the U.S. reached $962.6 billion at the end of last year, and the current account surplus with the U.S. totaled $118.2 billion in 2024, I don't think it's unrealistic. What's the Prime Minister's view?
While it may be a burden for us now, in the long run, it can be a win-win for both Korea and the US, and even benefit our economy's long-term growth. So I think it's hard to judge it by the number alone.
So, Ha-young, what's next for the National Assembly? What lies ahead in terms of political standoff between the two rival parties?
Well, with the regular session still underway, more contentious issues are expected in the weeks ahead. The National Assembly's audit of government ministries and agencies is scheduled to begin on October 13th, with lawmakers reviewing performance across policy, spending, administration, and public impact. And lawmakers will also need to tackle the 2026 budget and other key reform bills, but sharp partisan divisions remain even before these issues arise. And in fact, the launch of a joint consultative body on livelihood-related matters composed of both parties has been set back due to the ruling party's push for the government reorganization plan. And although the rival parties initially agreed to establish the body and hold its first meeting on Friday, the PPP announced that the launch has now been postponed. And with this setback and other key developments, attention will remain on the upcoming event as the regular session unfolds.
All right, Ha-young, thank you for the wrap-up today. Do keep us posted.
Will do. Thank you.
On the cultural front, the southern port city of Busan continues to draw visitors from around the world for this year's Busan International Film Festival, with several global collaborative films with Korean movie makers. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo gives us a glimpse.
Made with Korea. Among hundreds of films premiering in Busan, it's easy to see how deeply Korean movie makers are involved. Not only in homegrown productions, but also through collaborations that cross borders. One standout is The Protector, the first ever Hollywood film led by a Korean production company. Premiering in Busan for the first time, the filmmakers shared their excitement about being part of such a groundbreaking project.
We're just scratching the surface of how Korean and American Hollywood productions can be made together. Really work together to kind of condense the script and really get to the core, the essence of it that could really affect people on a worldwide level.
In the past few years, Korean content has become very big outside of Korea. Being able to create this story, it's an honest piece of work, and that translates to any culture.
Another buzzworthy project is Hana Korea, which depicts a North Korean defector's life through a Northern European director's perspective. The scenario was assisted by Sharon Choi, director Bong Joon-ho's translator during his Oscar win, and performed by Korean actors to deliver authenticity. The Busan International Film Festival is alive with movie fans from around the world, and they're expected to keep coming over the next few days. What are they expecting to see? Definitely more of these collaborative films, the ones made with Korea, from Hollywood to Europe.
Good for like cultural exchange and learning from each other, also in the art of movie making, can be very beneficial too.
I really like different perspectives. It feels a bit more emotional. Just watching films in languages I don't really understand feels like I am appreciating like the acting.
Likewise, the Japanese hit Kokuho that surpassed 10 million viewers in Japan, the first case a Korean director has achieved such a record, and the remake of The Wedding Banquet by a Korean-American director, featuring renowned Korean actor Yoon Yo-jung, also premieres throughout the festival. With many of these intriguing collaborative projects being showcased in Busan, why not try taking this cinematic journey beyond borders, made with Korea? Park Gun-woo, 아리랑뉴스, Busan.
Long before K-pop, there was Korean traditional music, Kugak. South Korea's first ever Kugak expo is now underway in Yeongdong-gun County, in the very center of South Korea. Our Park Hyubin takes us there.
Under the cool autumn breeze, Korea's lively rhythms fill the air. Performers play traditional Korean instruments such as 꽹과리 and 장구 to the beat of 풍물, lifting the spirit of the crowd. The World Traditional Music and Arts Expo has opened in Yeongdong-gun County, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, known as the home of Korea's traditional music. It's also known as the Yeongdong World Kugak Expo, with Kugak meaning traditional Korean music.
There are 33 of us here today for the expo. It's bigger than I expected, and even at the entrance, we were saying how well it's set up. We'll look around some more. I've always loved traditional Korean music.
I really loved it. The atmosphere was so lively, and I'll definitely come back if they hold it again.
It isn't only Korean music that draws attention. A variety of sights, dances, and stage acts paired with traditional sounds captivate visitors. One of them is Bonanori, similar to a plate-spinning show that's part of the UNESCO-listed Intangible Cultural Heritage, Namsadangnori. The basic step known as ipchum, which underlies every movement in Korean dance, highlights the beauty of traditional performance. Alongside these traditional acts, there's also a fusion kugak that combines Korean heritage with modern music, with more than 200 performances and busking sessions in total. The expo isn't just about Korean sounds. Musicians from 30 countries, including China, Russia, and the Czech Republic, are sharing their instruments and performances, creating a true cross-cultural stage. The organizing committee says it hopes this exchange will broaden appreciation for world traditions and help Kugak reach a wider global audience.
The expo is not only Korea's first, but also the first of its kind worldwide. Here, you can experience the past, present, and future of Korean traditional music and enjoy outstanding dance and music from 30 invited countries, all in one place.
The expo shows that tradition, when shared, can become a language the whole world understands.
The Yeongdong World Kugak Expo runs until October 11th, bringing Korea and the world together through music. Hyun, 아리랑뉴스.
That's all we have for this edition of Weekly News Highlights. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.